When two children go missing from a small town, everyone who lives there is traumatized and frightened. Diligent parents curtail their kids' outdoor playtime. The other kids worry it could happen to them. We've heard that Lilly and Jack Sullivan's schoolmates who ride the same bus keep asking the bus driver, Mr. Ward, if the kids have been found. Clearly, they're concerned for their friends and aware of them going missing. I would imagine parents in the area are having to have discussions with their kids as they tuck them into bed. Something like, "Don't worry, Mommy and Daddy won't let that happen to you." This makes me think that Lilly and Jack, before they disappeared, should have been told about stranger danger. Their mother has said that they don't know about that. Why not? Shouldn't any child of school age be told that they shouldn't blindly trust every person who approaches them? And they definitely should not go off with someone they don't know? That detail from the mother is something that nags at me. Michael Arntfield, a criminologist at Western University in London, Ontario, has called Lilly and Jack's case, quote, unprecedented. He went on to say it's highly unlikely for two siblings who live together to vanish when a parent is not involved. And there's no evidence of that. If that had been the case, I think we would have heard about that very quickly. End quote. Arntfield went on to say, quote, this case, when you overlay it on 100 other missing children's cases, it just doesn't add up at many levels, end quote. Arntfield feels that the police should have said publicly in the early days of the search whether the case was considered suspicious. Arntfield's opinion is that based on appearances, this case went in the wrong direction early on, and key momentum and leads were lost when investigators were out in the fields and the woods looking for kids that maybe were never there. This is what's been also nagging at me lately, that so much searching has been done in the woods, when it may be more likely that the kids never wandered off into the woods. A lot of us find the timeline suspicious and upsetting. We know Lilly and Jack were last at school on Tuesday, April 29th, and on Wednesday, all the kids in the area had off from school. Then, according to the parents, on Thursday and Friday, Lilly were kept at home due to Lilly having a cough. I was scrolling through comments on Reddit, which I know it's not a reliable source of information, but you never know what you'll find there. Remember, it is believed Idaho 4 defendant Brian Koberger secretly posted on Reddit. Someone posted there that they lived nearby to where Lilly and Jack went missing, and this person wrote, quote, so many people were sick around this time. I took sick days from work, May 1st and 2nd myself. My sisters were off earlier in the week. So bad timing, sure. Not necessarily suspicious, end quote. Another person from Canada wrote, I'm in Canada and was sick too around this time. So these Canadians are saying it's not suspicious that the two kids were kept home from school for those 2 days that week. On this same Reddit thread, some people were saying that it was suspicious that the parents were still in bed on a weekday at 10 a.m. when 4-year-old Jack was still wearing pull-ups. They felt that any parent worth their salt would have gotten up when the kids were up to change Jack's pull-up. What I find odd is that both children were, according to the parents, kept home from school because of Lily's cough. But Daniel Martel has said Lilly was wearing a pink top. He made it sound like she was not still in her PJs, but in street clothes when she went into the parents' bedroom. We've also been told that Jack might have been wearing a brown shirt and brown pants. Shouldn't the parents know what clothing items are missing from the home? And isn't it more likely that the kids would have still been in their PJs, especially given that the parents, at least according to them, were still in bed. Of course, because there are no outside witnesses to what actually happened that week inside that home, we can't be sure anything the parents told us is in fact true. One of the comments on this same Reddit thread said that the mother left the property with baby Meadow because CPS told her they would take the baby if she stayed at that property. The person was implying that the house must have been found unfit for little kids. But again, we can't be sure this is valid information. No valid source has said this. The only thing we've heard is when Danielle Martel said at one point that he went to that he went to CPS to see baby Meadow, but was denied. That story seems to imply that Meadow was taken into CPS custody and was not with the mother at her family's home in another county. What we have to do with this case is try and separate verified fact from speculation. By the way, in Canada, CPS goes by different names. In most of the province of Nova Scotia, the name of the agency that looks after child protection matters is called the Department of Opportunities and Social Development. A very strange name for such an agency, in my opinion. There's also a private agency that looks after child protection matters in the Mi'kmaq community. It's called the Mi'kmaq Family and Children Services, and we know that Lilly and Jack were members of the Mi'kmaq tribe through one of their grandparents. Someone else on this thread said that they themselves were involved in, someone else on this thread said that if the parents were truly involved in the children's disappearance, they would have come up with a better story. By saying that they were still in bed at 10 a.m., Danielle Martel and the mom make themselves look like lazy, neglectful parents. The people commenting said this could point to the parents' story being true. They argued if you're going to make up a story, wouldn't you make yourself look like a stellar parent who is up with the kids, changing Jack's pull-up, making them a nice warm breakfast, watching over them as they played outside? That's an interesting idea. But again, it's speculation. All we can really be sure of right now is that 2 kids, ages 6 and 4, have been missing for several weeks, and they were last seen by people outside the family on Tuesday, April 29th of 2025.
It contained clues about the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. RCMP asked her for days of footage as the investigation into the missing children approaches the 3-week mark.
It's scary, especially not knowing what happens. We definitely keep our kids a little closer to home now.
The 4- and 6-year-olds were reported missing from this home on May 2nd, launching a massive search of the woods surrounding the home. No trace has been found, and RCMP haven't ruled out the case is suspicious. This is some of the footage Scott gave police. She says RCMP major crimes officers came to her home this week, asking for everything on her 7 cameras, starting April 27th, 5 days before the kids were reported missing. 2 of Scott's neighbors were also asked to provide footage to RCMP. She says the officers also asked about her family's vehicles to rule out local traffic in the footage.
Possibly they are wondering if they didn't go missing earlier, or maybe somebody who isn't local to the area was around beforehand.
This road is the most direct path from Scott's property to the home the kids went missing from. We drove between the 2 places. It's about an 18-minute drive down rough dirt roads. Straight through the woods, it's about 5 kilometers.
I did mention to them that I was very happy to see them and glad that they were canvassing a little further and looking at trail cam footage. And they did respond saying that they probably should have been around earlier.
RCMP would not answer CBC's questions, including why they are seeking trail camera footage from before the disappearance and why they are identifying local vehicles. Nicola Sagan, CBC News, Glengarry Station, Nova Scotia.